Should you buy Shadow of War in 2022? Shadow of War is probably one of the best mediocre sequels to release within the last decade. War doubles down on everything that worked in Shadow of Mordor, yet fails to improve on many of the lacking elements of Shadow of Mordor. The story is all over the place, failing to pull on any emotions, and the ending is pulled in multiple directions, with the epilogue killing any sort of momentum the third act built up, with a pretty awesome twist. But with that said, the gameplay is such an improvement over Shadow of Mordor in every way you can possibly imagine. There are cooler orcs to kill, a more fleshed out nemesis system, improved combat, and a variety of new and useful skills for you to unlock over this 20 to 25 hour game, which results in a fantastic gameplay loop that is really held back by boring main missions and an even more boring story. When I say boring, it's not because it just sucks, it's because there isn't a story here to tell. It really is just go invade some places and get occasional hints to character fates before they potentially happen. That's the story. Shadow of War would have been better off just ditching the story altogether and really just leaning into the nemesis system even further, and potentially create a multiplayer game with the sole focus of building bases and using orcs and stuff like that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's get a little bit more in depth with the praises and criticisms, and if you do enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like, I'd really appreciate it, and maybe even subscribe if you want more reviews like this. Oh, I should just mention, I'm not doing a review of Gotham Knights anytime soon. I didn't get a review copy, and I just don't have the money to spend on a full price game right now. I just bought Uncharted and I'm about to buy God of War, so those are more important reviews to me, but I will review it eventually. I won't let you guys down. The problem with Shadow of War's story is the serious lack of direction. There never seems to be any main motivator to carry on the story, as the whole thing is just about dominating orcs to build an army. There's never any personal development for Celebrimbor or Talion until the very end of the story, which is just such an odd decision. I'm not the biggest fan of Lord of the Rings. I barely know anything about it. I've watched the movies, but even I know there's a lot of missed potential with the Shadow series when it comes to storytelling, so if you feel like I'm being too harsh, it's because I know this could have been so much better. Characters are really boring. Talion is basically just a walking piece of meat for the player to project onto until the very end of the story, and is easily the most boring Troy Baker performance I've ever heard.
Nina Sita. I must know if Shelob's vision holds true.
Celebrimbor is more interesting because of the dynamic he shares with Talion. Morality becomes a theme sort of towards the end of the story, but other than that, Celebrimbor kind of carries the character work. He's far more interesting because he's an actual character, unlike Talion. Talion really is just a piece of meat, which is such a weird decision because he had such a strong start in Shadow of Mordor, watching his family be killed like that, but it just never, he never shows any emotion over it. He doesn't care about it. It's never his motivation to like die or whatever, without spoiling too much. So it's just an odd thing because there's such a great potential for this story, but they just wasted it. It's just super weird seeing the thing that was criticized the most with Shadow of Mordor get no improvements whatsoever. The biggest improvement is presentation. The visuals are much better than Shadow of Mordor thanks to it being a PS4 and Xbox One exclusive, and the cutscenes get a substantial improvement in both cinematography and color. Yes, color. That's how little praise I've got for the story. I have to mention color, but it is nice. But other than that, I really can't speak positively about the story. I hate to say that because I really enjoy Shadow of War, but the story itself is just so shit. The ending, while pulled in multiple directions, is actually interesting and does have a surprise waiting for you, but it just comes too late, and I really hope they just leave these characters behind at this point. I'd love for a sequel or just another IP to take the Nemesis system and just focus on that so players can create their own mini-stories. That's the strength of Shadow of War. But will we ever get another sequel in the Shadow series? I honestly don't think so, or at least I don't think we will see the same characters or time period. But to end this section on a positive note, I do think it was really nice to see this part of the world explored, especially in the gaming industry. I just wish it was better. We do need more Lord of the Rings games. I'm not the biggest fan, like I've said, but you know, there's a lot of potential in that IP. Now this is what makes Shadow of War one of the best open world games you can play at the moment. The gameplay is pretty much perfected. Everything is nearly perfect. The abilities you unlock are incredibly useful and necessary in the late game. Every captain, war chief and overlord drops gear for you to equip, which changes how you play Shadow of War. Every orc seems to have a character and something unique about them that makes every fight seem different every time, and especially when they become your actual nemesis and they keep coming back, you can't help but laugh at it because it's just fun. You unlock new swords, bows, rings, outfits, armor, etc, etc. They really fix pretty much every problem I had with the gameplay of Shadow of Mordor. It's insane. Side missions are fleshed out a little bit more this time around and actually offer incentives to complete them, like special gear and skills that can only be unlocked by completing them, which sounds so basic, but you'd be amazed how many games forget to offer an actual incentive for you to complete them other than, oh, get a skill point. The new siege mode is really cool. You have a bunch of ways to invade and protect the bases in the game, which is it's actually really well balanced as well. You can brand all the war chiefs, so you can just walk in and take the base without a fuss, but that will take significantly longer. Or you could try your luck and just invade it immediately and try and save some time. That choice adds so much to the gameplay loop to the point I never got bored even on my second or third playthrough. And that is really important. I didn't get bored despite the fact that you really are doing the same thing over and over again. Without the Nemesis system, this game would have been a critical disaster because of how repetitive it would have been. But that just shows what a goldmine this Nemesis system is. Warner Bros even patented it, I think, which means other companies can't use the idea or something along the lines of that. It's something special and you can only experience it in the Shadow games at this point in time. Main missions suck though, I never want to play them again, I hated them. Every mission is follow this character, go kill this orc, or save these people, rinse and repeat. It's lazy and it sucks, but the boss battles are pretty cool this time around. Shadow of Mordor had terrible boss fights, but here when it comes to the Nazgul and another fight I won't spoil, they are actually pretty good, and there's this one big ass boss that I will show you that was really cool to take on. When it comes to gear that you can unlock from different orcs, they also have different abilities attached to them, so you could be freezing enemies more quickly, you could be gaining wrath more quickly, you can have different upgrades that come with different side effects and things of that nature. And there's also special bits of gear that you do for the side quests, and they unlock special abilities as well as improve abilities you already have. So there's a system called wrath, and basically you build up wrath and you get to press a button and you become like super powerful. You can do multiple executions, you can just attack everyone and be invulnerable. If you get the specific gear called the Bright Lord gear, which is done through collecting these like little memory type things, I don't know what they're called, it's Iflins or something, something like that. If you collect all of them, you unlock the Bright Lord gear set, and then you pretty much gain wrath at a much faster rate, but it's also reduced in length. So let's say it was a minute long originally. It's not a minute long, but we're saying it's a minute long. If you get the gear, it's like 30 seconds long, but it takes like 75% faster to get the wrath. You understand what I'm saying? So that little change is really great because it can completely change how you attack bosses, how you attack sieges, how you attack overlords. You build it up, or you can just get rid of that entirely and focus on executions or something like that. There's just a lot of opportunities there that you can rely on, and it keeps it fresh. And that is the key to this kind of game. Keep it fresh. Keep it fresh every time. Keep it fresh. Bring something new to the table. You're guaranteed to keep players playing, like myself. All in all, Shadow of War is a massive improvement over Shadow of Mordor, but is lacking in a quality story and may get repetitive for some folk. But for me, it's a really fun game that provides a lot of value for the price it sells at now in 2022. This will be my last review on Shadow of War. Now it's updated for 2022, and I do hope we get a similar game in the near future. Shadow of War is often on sale for really cheap, and I played it for about 25 hours in total on this playthrough, so I really do think it's worth the money if you enjoy these types of games. Thank you for watching, and remember to keep it classic.